Hey everybody. Well, let's get a little bit of education, okay? So Eliezer ben Judah, okay? That's the guy's name, right? Or is it? No. Look at here. Eliezer ben Judah, born Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman. Where was he born? He was born in Russia, right? Was a Russian Jewish linguist, okay? A lexicographer, a journalist. He was renowned as a lexicographer for the first Hebrew dictionary and also the editor of Jerusalem Bates Hatzvi, one of the first Hebrew newspapers published in the land of Israel. Ben Judah was the primary driving force behind the revival of the Hebrew language, which died out a long time ago. Way after 200-300 years after the apostles, something like that, maybe more. I'm not quite sure. So let's see. It says Eliezer ben Judah. Okay, it's got the Hebrew name, and it has it on here. Born Eliezer Yitzhak Perlman, 1858. Lusky, Vienna Governorate, Russian Empire, now Belarus. Okay. He died in 1922, right about the same time as it says there, the British Mandate for Palestine, which is actually Israel. But they were calling it Palestine because of the name that stuck with it, which it wasn't really Palestine, it was always Israel. And of course, they were calling that because of Hadrian and so on and so forth. Because he cursed it by calling it Syria Palestinia. So he cursed it in honor of the Jews, supposedly. Hadrian did. So this resting place, as you can see, is Mount of Olives, Jerusalem. His alma mater was Sorbonne University. Occupation, linguist, journalist. Organization, Hazivi, or however you say that. And known for, check it out, reviving the Hebrew language. There you go. So the Hebrew that is spoken today is not the Hebrew, the pure language that they spoke almost 2,000 years ago. Ithamar ben Avi was one of his children. Dola ben Judah was the other child. So it's showing you all kind of stuff here with his wife, things like that. Who was his mother? Who was his father? Yehuda Laib and Tzivora Perlman, who were Chabad Hasidim, it says. His native language was Yiddish. He attended a Jewish elementary school, a Shidar, where he studied Hebrew and the Hebrew Bible from the age of 3, and was customary among the Jews, of Eastern Europe. By the age of 12, he had read large portions of the Torah, Mishnah, and Talmud. His mother and uncle hoped he would become a rabbi and sent him to a yeshiva, where there he was exposed to the Hebrew of the Jewish Enlightenment. Okay, so the Hebrew that they spoke was probably partial, the true Hebrew language. So I think it says on here earlier. So even though some of it, I may go walk myself back, sorry. Whatever Hebrew that they spoke was probably the Hebrew that was preserved, not the true Hebrew. But later we see that these Jewish Orthodox people spoke, ultra-Orthodox, whatever they are, spoke. So it seems like to me that if that's the true Hebrew, then it's not going to be Yiddish. And it said it spoke Yiddish. So let's go down here a little bit further. It says, exposed to the Hebrew of the Jewish Enlightenment, which included some secular writings. He learned French. Because you notice that some Arabs and even Jewish people speak as if they're taught whenever they speak Hebrew. They talk as though they're speaking French. French, German, and Russian, was sent to Dunenburg for the further education, reading the Hebrew language newspaper Hashahar. He became acquainted with the early movement of Zionism. So that makes sense, being they call in Judaism, they call God Hashem. So there you go. So they don't call him Yahweh like the Messianic Jews do. They call him Hashem. He became acquainted with the early movement of Zionism. Upon graduation in 1877, Ben Yehuda went to Paris for 4 years. I heard somebody. Did y'all hear somebody? Oh, Lord, I've been talking for 6 minutes. And I didn't know I paused the thing. Okay, so anyway, you see that it says Yiddish or Yiddish. It says Judeo-German language. It is a West Germanic language historically spoken by Ashkenazi Jews. It originated in the 9th century, Central Europe, and provided that nascent Ashkenazi community with a vernacular based on High German, fused with many elements taken from the Hebrew, notably Mishnaic, and to some extent Aramaic, not Arabic, Aramaic. And Aramaic, let's click on that and see what it is. Aramaic, Jewish Babylonian Aramaic, is a northwest Semitic language that originated in the ancient region of Syria and quickly spread to Mesopotamia, the southern Levant, that's Syria, southeastern Anatolia, that's Turkey, eastern Arabia, Saudi Arabia, and Sinai Peninsula, which is part of Egypt, where it has been continually written and spoken in different varieties over 3,000 years. Yeah, like pinto years. The dude on TV in Israel, I really like him. He's such a cool fella. Most varieties of Yiddish include elements of Slavic or Slavic languages, that's like Russia. And the vocabulary contains traces of Romance languages. What is that? Just take a listen when you hear those IFD fellows talk. IDF fellows, Israel Defense Forces fellows talk. He sounds very French when he talks. The language sounds very French acting. It has that French connotation to it. It's spelt with, like when you say Netanyahu, like Benjamin Netanyahu's name. Instead of it being pronounced Nathaniel, it's spelled Netanyahu. Of course, it was at one time his father's name was Benzion Malachowski, because he was born in Benzion, his father, John Benjamin Netanyahu's name. He was born in Poland. His father was Nathan Malachowski. He was born in Belarus, I think, Russia or something like that. And so anyway, I think that's where it was, or I got him confused with Ben Yehuda. But anyway, you don't see Benjamin Netanyahu changing his name from a J to a Y, do you, on his first name? No. You just see it on the last name, because that's the name his father took. And so anyway, his Benjamin Netanyahu's first name isn't Yiddish, it is English, based on the Hebrew, like we see in the Bible. But his last name is it would be Nathaniel, Benjamin Nathaniel, instead of Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's Yiddish, and it's based on, as we see here, the High German, the Romance languages, Aramaic, and the old language of the Syrians, and things like that. And as you can see here, it says, again, if I hadn't showed already, because I don't know how much I got recorded on here, because, like I said, I paused it by accident. Yiddish is a Judeo-German language, native to Central, Eastern, and Western Europe. Europe, Israel, North America, South America, other regions with Jewish populations. Ethnicity, Ashkenazi Jews. Those are the Jews, as it shows right here on the very end of this thing. If you look at it right there, Indo-European, Germanic, West Germanic, LB Germanic, High Germanic, High German, Yiddish. That's where Yiddish comes from. Yiddish. So the Hebrew of today isn't the true Hebrew that they spoke thousands of years ago. There might be traces in it with the ultra-Orthodox Jews, but it is not the language that they speak today, which is the pure Hebrew. So there you go. So when you see somebody with a Y in their name and all this other stuff, then that should tell you, whenever somebody tells you God's name is Yahweh, or Yeshua, or Yahuwah, or Yasha, or whatever you want to call it, or Jesus' name, that should tell you that's Yiddish. It's Yiddish. Jesus' name and the true language that the Bible was put together in English, that is the King James Version Bible. It was the Bible revised and corrected all the previous Bible versions before it, previous Bible versions before it. And so whenever you see Jesus with a J, or when you see Jehovah, all capital letters, with a J, that's the way it's said, with a soft G, not with a Y sound. And the V isn't replaced with a W, because that's Yiddish. It's German, it's French, it's Syrian. It's a mixture of Slavic. It's a mixture of other languages. It's not true Hebrew. The Hebrew of the day, y'all, is not true Hebrew. There might be places where they speak Hebrew and it's close to pure as he can get, but what they're really speaking is Yiddish for the most part, and not all places, I guess, in Israel, whatever, and here in America. But when you see Yahweh, my whole point is, when you see Yahweh, when you see Yeshua, or Yahuwah, and Yasha, and all this other stuff, but yet they don't change Jehoiakim, you don't change Jehoshaphat, you don't change those names into, like, Ezekiel would be what? Hezekiah would be Hezekiah, or something like that. Or you don't change Jehoshaphat into what? Yehoshaphat, or Yehoshabat. You don't change it to that, do you? Nope. You don't change, well, people have changed. They've taken Joseph to Yosef, right? Yosef instead of Joseph. Yeah, instead of that. But now you know. But the words we see in English, which is it is a derivative of the German language, but the English we have is a better German offshoot than, of course, Yiddish is. Because Yiddish is a combination of multiple languages, and our English is a more direct offshoot of the certain languages which were in German. So, which they have been influenced by other languages too, but our language is the one that God chose to go around the world. He didn't choose Yiddish, did he? No. A man put that together. See what I'm saying? A man named Jehovah, Yahweh. A man named Jesus Christ, Yasha, or Yeshua, or Yahuwah, whatever else. A man did that. A man in another Bible version. A man that had nothing to do with the Authorized Version King James Bible. But yet, you still see a lot of these Bible versions out there. Not all of them, but a good few smattering of them, a good handful of them have Yahweh, Yeshua, and all this other stuff, but they don't have nothing. Well, probably not even that. They don't call Jesus Yeshua, or whatever. But whenever it comes to Jehoshaphat, or those J names, Theophort names that these other kings are named for, Abijah, Elijah, all the rest of them, you don't see those change. You only see the names that, the name of God, or Jesus' name, change. Why? Because they want you to call him by the name that they put in their Bible so they can make money off of it. That is changing God's name. And when you change God's name, when you change his words to go from the perfect Bible that he gave the English-speaking people, which, of course, again, English is a derivative of German, but a better version of it. And this is the language that we spoke around all the world for the past 400 some odd years to spread the gospel. When you change God's name from Jehovah to Yahweh, a Yiddish name that's partly Hebrew, partly this, partly that, smattering this, smattering that, based on Ashkenazi Jews, Germanic Jews, you got trouble. You got trouble. That is not God's name. God's name is Jehovah. God's name is Jesus. The Son of God is Jesus, Jesus Christ. Yes, it was Joshua in the old days in the Old Testament, but in the Greek New Testament, it's Jesus, like it says in the Bible. And that's that. Put that in your pipe and smoke.